We had a big weekend, and the NDAA was filed on Saturday. So that's the National Defense Authorization Act. It's kind of our big ticket item that we track all year long. What are some of the highlights?
Okay, well, the biggest thing that we were tracking really closely was the junior enlisted pay raise.
And I know there were some differences as we were going into this final conferencing process, but what's the final bill say?
Okay, 10%. So as you recall, the Senate had 1%, the House had 15%, and they met not quite in the middle, which is great news for junior enlisted. So putting that 15% increase in perspective, that's around $3,000 to $6,000 per year. And that's just one of the really important provisions we see in this year's NDAA focused on quality of life. So
and what ranks is that going to?
that's going to E1 to E4s with some adjustments for E5s as well.
Fantastic. And there's some really good stuff for families, too. One of the biggest challenges that we're facing as a nation, and specifically as a military community, is childcare. And so they were looking at the Quality of Life panel, introduced some provisions that would help improve the prospect of finding providers. And one of those things that the Air Force was kind of leading the way on was providing 100% free childcare for the first child of any of their providers. Well, the NDAA includes a provision to make that a requirement for all the services, so that's a big win.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about the way the services do it is you can learn from each other rather than having everything necessarily standardized, because there are some unique things and some good ideas that generate from one.
Yeah.
That can be spread.
Yeah, and another thing that we always struggle with and talk about a lot is military spouse employment and unemployment. And we know that there's a pretty significant number of military spouses who work in licensed and credentialed fields. Now, 2 years ago, there was a bill that was called the Veterans Auto and Education Improvement Act, and that was supposed to help provide license portability for military spouses. Unfortunately, the language was really vague. It was to amend the Service Members Civil Relief Act. What a provision in this year's NDAA will do is actually require states to issue a license, which is one of the things that you kind of need. Mm-hmm. Accepting a license is different than actually being issued a new one in the state that you want to work in, because it's going to help you find a job in a more timely fashion following a PCS. So that was actually led by efforts from the Department of Justice, and we're really pleased to see it and make it the final version.
Well, 3 big things in the NDAA, but there's a whole lot more, and our government relations team is sorting through the thousands of pages of documents that come along with that. So the big news is that the NDAA text is out, but it's not across the finish line, and we need your help to get this done. Go to the Legislative Action Center and write your lawmakers and tell them to get this done by Christmas.
And speaking of Christmas, MOAA got an early Christmas present this year. We've been recognized as the top lobbyist for the 18th year in a row. And a lot of that is thanks to your support. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.